is over.
Welcome, everybody, to the Insiders Wrestling Podcast, and we have a guest from our Daze community with us today. Say hello, everybody, to Brandi. Brandi is a member of the community, and she reached out to us via YouTube, and we have the pleasure of talking with her today. We're going to talk some wrestling. Brandi, welcome, and thank you for being with us today.
Thank you so much, you guys. It made my week.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. Love to hear that. Love to hear that.
And you made ours with your comment on YouTube.
You definitely did. You definitely did. We talk about this with the community a little bit, but this is, this the kind of thing, this is why we do this stuff. Jeff and I just love doing this, and we enjoy it so much. And the fact that we are able to, connect with you guys and share things with you guys is above and beyond everything else. So that's awesome. But anyway, welcome. So I guess I'll get started with this and ask you. So how did you find the Daze community, and when did you find a community?
I had no idea. Like, I didn't know anything about YouTube. My 6-year-old knows more about YouTube than I do. But my husband at the time said, I've heard about this guy. I think you should listen to him because you'd get a lot more out of it than me just sitting there trying to tell you what's happening on screen. And he was extremely good at that. But, he would still miss some of those really important nuances where, I'd be like, okay, what happened? And I started listening I didn't realize Daze had a stream. I was just looking at his update videos and kind of, breaking news. And then one day I realized, wait, he's streaming Raw and he's doing Smackdown, and I just absolutely fell in love. And if he could be the voice of my voiceover on my phone, I would have a fit. So I love how descriptive he is. And I think a lot of that is lost in the announcing today.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Completely agree with you there.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So how long was it? How long have you been a part of the community now?
I guess doing the streams probably 3 or 4 months, and then like just listening to his updates and things probably a year or so. Okay.
So you've been in the community longer than Jeff and myself then, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay. That's very cool. So what got you, and I know we were talking about this a little bit before the show, what got you started in being interested in wrestling?
When you grow up in a small town in the South, especially in the 80s, you realize you only have 3 channels. And on Saturday nights, wrestling was on, or Saturday mornings, wrestling was on. And with my brother and sister, my dad could do more physical things, but that was a way that he and I connected, was he would watch wrestling and, I would think I want to do something with my dad. So I would sit and watch with him.
Gotcha.
Awesome.
Yeah. That's funny that again, we just had another wrestler on and said the same thing. A lot of it is passed on from generation to generation. And he said that too. He got it from his father going to and again, my dad, I don't think he watched it so much, but he took me to shows. I had gone to like some of the really local gyms in my area that, very small gyms. But they would have, wrestling shows in there. And so I was lucky enough to go to some of those and that's kind of what got me started in the whole thing. So yeah, that's how it starts for a lot of us. It's just comes down from people watching it and listening and enjoying it. So that's awesome. That's awesome.
And I was so drawn to Hulk Hogan, as a kid, looking back on it, some of it may be a little campy, but I mean, you see some of those moments with Macho Man and Elizabeth, or the incident with Andre. I mean, it's just, you can't get any better than that.
No, I agree. The era of Hulk Hogan was amazing, and really started everybody on, he, again, for me, I mean, I was in my early teens, I guess, and he was a superhero. He really was.
Yeah. And, Dusty Rhodes, when he came to WWE, I loved him.
Yep.
And it's so funny now, I look back on it, and we would be watching wrestling, and my dad would throw out a Dusty line. He'd be like, "Too sweet to be sour, the man of the hour." And I would thought, what is he talking about? And now, I go back and I'm like, Dusty was a genius.
Absolutely.
Yes, he was.
Absolutely.
So I have to ask, as a fellow Southerner, were you more of a WWE fan or a NWA WCW fan?
I knew that was coming. Only having 3 channels growing up, we didn't have cable because we live in the country. And I was 15 when we got satellite television. And so I remember seeing the first Nitro and going, this is totally different. This is something new. So the Monday Night Wars, I absolutely loved. I hated Eric Bischoff. Now I love him. The Attitude Era, it was just, we would go to school and everybody's talking about, in class, hey, what happened on Nitro last night? What happened on Raw? And we even had one teacher in a class of mine when I was in the 10th grade. And on Tuesdays, we spent the entire class talking about what happened on Nitro or Raw the night before. So
that's awesome.
That was cool. Mm-hmm.
I was growing up here. I was more of an NWA, WCW guy, I guess. I mean, I did keep up with WWF at the time, and I would watch Hulk Hogan and all those characters. And that's one of the things about the 80s too, is that the wrestlers were larger than life personas at that time.
Absolutely.
So it was just like it was a different feel, different vibe, and I really enjoyed that. But I kept up with WWF at the time, but I was a diehard NWA, WCW guy. So guys like Sting and
absolutely,
like Nikita Koloff and Ricky Steamboat and all those guys. I was a huge fan.
I love Arn Anderson.
Yes.
And I'm a huge Mick Foley fan. I don't know if it's because Mick probably has multiple personalities, but
there you go.
if I could meet one guy, it would be Mick. I mean, you go back and you hear about his match with Vader, how he lost his ear, and it's just mind blowing. What these guys do for what they love is, in many cases, to me, incomprehensible.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. Mick Foley was one of those guys where his story is an incredible story where, he came from the backyard and he was jumping off of roofs and all that kind of stuff. And he came from that, from that. I think a friend of mine, I'm trying to think, we went to a convention at one point up this way. And I remember Mick was there and a friend of mine went and got an autograph with him.
I'm jealous. I'm jealous.
Yeah, it was really cool. I at the time, I think I was somewhere else getting one from another person or something like that. And then by the time I got back over, the line was so long, I knew I'd never make it in. But yeah, it was really cool. And he still has the picture and everything like that. And he said he's a genuinely nice person. I mean, when you go up, you talk to him for a while and stuff like that and everything. So yeah, he was really fun to watch. And I know we were talking about this earlier too with characters. How can you beat a guy who has 4 different characters?
Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, Cactus Jack. I mean, I would love to see a match with Cactus and Bray. If I can dream
that
it,
would be
but
great.
Absolutely,
dream match. Yep, without a doubt.
Absolutely.
without a doubt.
Absolutely.
And Bray's working on, I mean, who knows, the stuff that we've heard, the stuff that we've read and heard about Bray is, that again, this is nowhere near what he's going to do. So is he going to form more characters himself? I mean, he has two right now, but who knows? I mean, we got stuff that indicates that he may. So, and I know I know he kind of idolizes Mick. So yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, I know. That's really awesome. That's really
I
awesome.
really hope he brings back that kind of Waylon Mercy-esque character of the cult leader. I loved that.
Cult leader Bray.
Yeah.
Yeah, loved it.
Yep, absolutely. Well, we got a glimpse of it in the Funhouse match. So, it's still within him to do that. But yeah, it very well could happen. Very well could happen. So, again, I think we were talking a little bit before we started the show. So tell everybody what was the biggest impact match maybe that you saw early on when you first started being a wrestling fan. What was the first match that you really, really remember that stood out for you?
The first thing I can remember, and I was born in 82, so WrestleMania 5 was 89? So I was 7 years old. And that year for Christmas, I was one of triplets. And so Christmas at our house, we had to share a lot. And so a present to all of us was the 2 cassette of WrestleMania 5. And I think eventually we broke those tapes. And that got me into it. And then once, I guess, wrestling started to be more syndicated, I remember Brother Love. And now, I absolutely love Bruce Pritchard. But, when I was a kid, he scared me. and then, that absolutely iconic moment where Hulk is on the Brother Love show and then Earthquake just, flattens him, and WWE was trying to get you to do this write-in campaign. Let Hulk know, how much you get. I remember doing that.
Yeah, the good old days of wrestling, man. The good old days of wrestling. I loved all those characters. I loved the Saturday night's main events. I loved all that stuff. Hurricane and what was it? Tugboat was the other one, weren't they?
Tugboat. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man, so many amazingly and it was so 80s because it was the amazing. They were also like colorful characters and so really overblown characters. I mean, you don't see that much anymore. Some people will really go over and above like what what they could do, but you really don't. That's kind of a lost thing, so you don't see that all that much. And yeah, it was a really great time for that. So WrestleMania 5. So you wore the cassette out. I've done that. I can totally I can see where you're coming from. Totally hear that. I've done that many times. Who was? And I know you said Hulk Hogan, Mick Foley. Who's your favorite wrestler now? Who do you really think is doing a great job now?
Mick Foley's still my all-time.
Okay.
Right now, I love Taker. He's on my Mount Rushmore.
Yep.
But as far as kind of newer talent, I love Randy because I love his theme song. I wish it could be my ringtone. And
the Voices song, you mean?
Yes, just because of what I do for a living.
Oh.
I love it. And I got really excited when Shinsuke came in. And I wish he was doing more, like, from the beginning. I really love him. And I love a lot of the women. I know Rhonda's pretty controversial right now, but I think she genuinely has a love for wrestling.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah. I would agree. I know Jeff and we were talking about the whole Ronda controversy. What's your take on that? We talked about this on our podcast episode a couple days ago. Go ahead.
I heard. I think it's a combination of a work and a shoot.
Yep.
She's such a perfectionist. You know, I got that from the Total Divas last season. That's another wicked pleasure of mine. But, you know, I just, I got that she was such a perfectionist, but she was so genuine in wanting to do something good for the business, I felt like. So, you know, and the match with Becky was just, you know, I couldn't even see it, and I thought it was fantastic. So.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. It was, yeah, absolutely. I agree. I always liked Ronda. I don't watch much MMA or you know, but I do like, you know, I always liked her as an athlete. She always seemed very, very committed to everything that she did. And I agree. I think Jeff and I both agree. I think Jeff, you said that too, right? With it being both.
Yeah, I think it's a combination between a work and a shoot. I think that, you know, like you said, Brandi, she is a perfectionist, and I think coming from the background that she has of being an Olympic athlete and then being at the top of the game in the UFC, yeah, I think she came into WWE wanting to be the best, and I think she found out, okay, this is a lot of work, and not only is it a lot of work, but the fans can really dictate a lot. So I think when she got some of the reactions she did, I think that really, you know, kind of, you know, hurt her feelings to a certain extent. And I do think that some of what she said was definitely how she feels, but I also think that this is setting up for something bigger down the road.
And I have to say, I want to see Nia Jax do so much more. I love the example that she sets. And for her to have come back from, I believe she had double knee surgery, and now she's, you know, wanting to be right back in the ring. I love that.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. What did you think of WrestleMania?
Okay, I know a lot of people are saying I don't like the empty arena matches. You know, it's so much more for me because with the crowd, so much is lost for me. Like, I can't see anything on the television screen, on any screen. Actually, I can detect light, and that's it. Okay, so
gotcha.
Being able to actually hear so much of the action in the ring, hearing the conversation, you know, the trash talk, it makes it so much more for me. So I really liked that aspect of it. If I could have been able to actually see the Funhouse match and the Boneyard match, I think I just would have been hysterical. But I listened to Daze during those matches, and his descriptions were just fantastic. So.
Yep. Absolutely. They were unique. And I know we've talked to a lot of people about them afterward, and I think WWE would be making a big mistake if they don't go forward with stuff like that.
I agree.
Because especially, I know they can't do it all the time because it costs a lot of money. Granted, I know they have a lot of money and they have their own movie studios, but that kind of stuff it takes money to do. It's like filming a movie in a way. And but they would be really silly if they didn't at the bigger events, especially like your Slam and your Royal Rumble and stuff, to do at least one or two of those. They'd be crazy not to, because it's really, really groundbreaking for the business and really mind blowing.
I thought it was fantastic. And you know, Vince has said several times in different interviews, we make movies. So now he really is.
Yeah. That's a great point of view, though. I thank you for sharing that, because again, not many people would understand that, you know, normally the crowd noise and everything like that is a lot of all you hear. I would imagine. So you know, we really appreciate you giving that point of view, because you know it's a completely different point of view for someone who is listening to the show. So that's awesome. Love it.
Well, a lot of people would probably go, how does a blind person enjoy wrestling? But you know, it's passion, and it's, you know, falling in love with someone's character or their voice, or how they do a promo, or and the announce team is really important. And now you just don't get JR's perspective, like when he was in WWE. I love him in AEW, or Tony Schiavone. I mean, they could really tell some stories. And now I love Corey Graves. I think he does a pretty good job, but you still don't get everything. And that's why I'll probably inflate Daze's ego here, but he's become essential to me in my wrestling experience each week.
That's awesome. That's
Yeah.
awesome. Listen, I'm, it's a huge compliment. And again, Jeff and I can't thank you enough for the compliment you gave us, and Daze, I'm sure will feel the same way. I mean, it is, and it's something you don't really think of. I mean, I know
No.
I've gotten used to turning my sound down when we're streaming with him, because like you said, the commentators, they're not what they used to be. Like you were saying with JR and stuff like that, it was always great to hear that constant voice that you had on some of the shows, but they change around so much now. The closest thing we get to someone steady is Michael Cole. I agree. What do you miss most about the older days? Because I know, I talk about this a lot of times too. I think I know when we were when I had my 80s show and we were talking about old wrestling and stuff, I know me and Jeff had mentioned, I miss some, like the managers, like the valets, like some of the stuff like that, like the crooked referee.
Exactly. Some of the podcasts I've listened to lately, I've kind of profiled some of those people. And Sherry Martel, I mean, for one of the ladies today to be like Sherry was, I mean, people would have a fit.
Yep.
Jimmy Hart, I don't know if there's a more genuine manager in the business. Mm-hmm. I think he's such a genuine person. In different interviews I've heard from him, Bobby Heenan, there will never be another person like Bobby Heenan.
No, I agree.
And oh gosh, I loved the $1 Million Man as kind of a stable leader. I thought that was awesome. And you just don't get that. You're never going to have your 4 horsemen again. They might try with the 4 horsewomen, but you're never going to have a 4 horsemen again.
Yeah. Again, like you said, I miss those days. There were a lot of things about them that, like you said, I mean, they had those managers there, and it wasn't even that, nowadays you kind of might see someone come into someone's corner, like Paul Heyman, with Brock Lesnar, but it's more of
Paul Heyman.
Oh yeah, Paul's great. I absolutely. I think he's a brilliant mind.
Yes.
But I think they don't really do it. They didn't really do it for the same reasons they do it today. I think more than likely today, when they think an athlete might need a manager, is because they don't think they have a mouthpiece. They don't think they can talk, and I think they'll send somebody out with them at that point. But back then,
I can see that with Brock.
Yeah, I can too. But I mean, back in those days, I don't think that was the case. The manager just added to the. Yeah.
I mean, Cyndi Lauper coming in with Randy Richter or Captain Lou. I mean, you just can't recreate some of that magic.
Nope.
And Miss Elizabeth.
Yeah.
People talk about what started the Divas Revolution or the Women's Revolution. It was Miss Elizabeth. I mean, she was just elegance and grace, and she was one of the first big examples for me as a female of you can be beautiful and successful. And I loved her.
Yep, I agree. Oh man, like I said, the good old days. And then we were talking about evil referees. You remember the bad referees like
Yes.
Davis and
yes.
you know, the referees who would throw the matches and stuff like that. So it's stuff like that you don't see it anymore. And again, it goes back to the point we were talking about earlier, just about storylines. So you don't see them just develop the storylines as much as they could. And I really hope that the athletes that are doing that kind of stuff today, that they really, really, you know, they work with them and they really push that thought that, hey, we're going to reward you because listen, you're coming up with a great story here. And man, I just hope that continues.
I hate that everything is as scripted now as it is. If you had scripted Stone Cold, he would have been Stone Cold.
Right.
You know?
Very true.
If you had scripted Shawn Michaels, he would not have been Mr. WrestleMania.
Yep.
So
That's true.
Can you imagine them trying to script DX promos?
Oh, forget
back
it.
in the day.
Forget it.
Yeah.
Forget it. Like even The Rock, like even The Rock, like the things he would come up with, I'd sit there cracking up laughing because of the stuff that he would come up with.
The Mick
And it
Foley,
was like,
this is your
where
life.
does he come off with this stuff? Oh man, yeah, just so good, so good. So what else do you watch?
Oh,
do you? Go ahead. No, go ahead.
No, I used to love it when say, finally The Rock would come back to, and then he'd tell somebody, I don't care what your name is. Every once in a while now, I'll do that to one of my friends. They're like, what are you talking about?
Oh, so good. Do you listen to any other wrestling shows out there other than WWE now? I heard you mention AEW. Do you listen to AEW as well?
I'm a big Rhodes family fan.
Okay.
Not just that Cody was smart enough to marry a woman named Brandi, but I loved Goldust's character. You know, and as a teenager, I didn't know what androgyny was, but I loved the glamour and the mystique of that character, and I absolutely fell in love with Dustin Rhodes. And you know, even kind of his evolution, you know, his stuff with Booker T, or his stuff with R-Truth, and now he's in AEW, and he's the best that he's ever been, and I love it.
And he's 50.
Who cares?
Crazy.
I know, but it's just amazing. It's just amazing to see that someone that's been around for as long as he has continues to evolve and get better.
But the old school guys, they did that. I mean, Flair was still wrestling in his 60s, and gosh, Harley Race. I mean, Dusty.
Yep.
I mean, these guys were like, if I can't be in the ring, I'm not living.
It's very true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's very true. So how about any of the other things as well, or is it just WWE and AEW for you?
Pretty much WWE, AEW. You know, I go back and look, you know, listen to some WCW stuff from back in the day because of the network. I don't know a lot about Impact. I don't know a lot about NWA. I had no clue when it was TNA that, you know, Sting had gone there, and, you know, so many of these people that I loved had gone, that Kurt Angle, and I wish I'd known that at the time, even though their product may not have been the best in the world. I would have loved to have seen some of that.
Yeah.
So we got to ask you. Go ahead, Jeff. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say I got to throw a quick plug in there for NWA. Mm-hmm. I know you love 80s wrestling and studio wrestling. If you want that feel of nostalgia, NWA is your ticket, because they're doing exactly that.
Cool. Didn't MJF come from NWA?
I'm not sure where he might have come from. That what was it called, Joe? Championship Wrestling of Hollywood.
Yeah, it could be the one the one that Zicky Dice was just talking to us about. Yeah, I think he was there. I think you're right.
You know, he's one of those characters that I think would have been successful in that kind of golden era that we've been talking about is MJF.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, he is a guy that lives his gimmick for sure.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So
And
what do
he's
you
so
think?
entertaining.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. So what do you think of all of the, I'd be remiss not to ask you because this is like the biggest storyline going. What did you think of all the cuts in WWE?
I felt incredibly bad for these people. Because I know a lot of them work as independent contractors, and that's primarily how I've worked too. And it's hard because, oh gosh, you're blessed in this life if you get to do what you love, and for that to be taken away is one of the most heart-wrenching things that can happen, in wrestling or not.
It's very true.
And I mean, just to hear, people are making a lot about the talent itself that was released. And yes, there's some huge names there, and, some stuff like, Rusev, who clearly loves what he does, or Zack Ryder, but just thinking about the backstage producers that they furloughed or let go. I mean, you think about the knowledge base of Mike Rotundo. I mean, it broke my heart. And then the next day you find out that Howard Finkel died.
Yep. Yeah. It's been a rough week for the business for sure. Yeah, I mean, now I think they announced some stuff today where WWE is going to start alternating between live and taping. So I kind of think there might be a little bit more than we're hearing about there, because I know Wednesday, and I was talking to Jeff about this as well. It seemed like there were a lot of cuts in jobs across the country that day. Bigger corporations that were just, furloughing people and laying people off and so on. I work for one of those. And so I think that I don't know, there must have been some sort of date. April 15th must have been some sort of date with, I don't know what it was, with banks maybe covering these companies, or with whatever, insurance dates, whatever the case might be. But I just think that there was something else there, other than what's going on. And I also think, and I obviously this is a question to you too, I think a lot of it has to do as well with safety of their athletes. And they talked about that being the reason that they're taping more now, because, I would imagine that these wrestlers do not feel comfortable getting on planes and going where they need to go. Now, the ones that live in Florida, the Performance Center, it wouldn't be so bad, but the ones who have to jump on a plane, fly out there, fly back, most people would be terrified to even get on a plane with the air and those things.
I would.
Yeah, I agree. So,
and
I mean,
you don't know what's underlying with the athlete. I think Roman Reigns said today or yesterday, you don't know what's going on at home. So you don't know if any of these guys have underlying conditions, that won't affect them in the ring, but it affects them in their daily life. So, and, there's been guys in the past that got staph infections from the ring mat. So,
that's true.
If you have to worry about the ring mat, and now you have to worry about, well, who's 6 feet away from me or who's not, I imagine that's very frightening for them.
I would agree. Jeff, man, what's your perspective on that? I mean, I know you as a wrestler, as an ex-wrestler. So what would you, I mean, at that point in time, what would you have felt like? I mean, obviously a lot of these guys have families, and, you've got to take that into consideration, of going out there in this kind of a thing. So what would you have felt like if you were, you were in a company like that and they said, hey, we're moving forward. They deemed us an essential business, and, listen, you got to make a choice. Either you're taking a furlough or you're coming to work.
I think for me, it all depends on the home dynamic, like Brandi said, and you want to trust that your employer has your best interest in mind, but you also have to be realistic when it comes down to, I mean, a business is in business to make money. So you have to really think about, do I want to potentially put myself in a position where I could contract this virus and then take it back home to my family and my kids if I have a family and kids? Or do I want to keep, putting myself at risk with all of this? So for me personally, I probably would have said, go ahead and furlough me and let me be at home with my family. And, that's why I really respect what Roman Reigns did, because, we just found out too that his wife is pregnant again with twins. So, that's a thing where you don't want to get your wife sick. So, yeah. So, pregnancy is hard enough without, virus outbreaks, and then you add that, factor on top of it, and then you can really complicate the pregnancy further. So I probably would have elected to stay home, and but that's just me. But I definitely I definitely see for the folks that continue to wrestle, I think that they're doing it not necessarily just for themselves, but I believe they're doing it to entertain the fans, because again, this is a unique situation for everyone in the world. And, right now everything is on hold. And I think they feel like, if we can provide a little bit of an escape for a few hours a week for the fans, then, that's what we want to do.
And it is. I think that's why so many of us are so passionate about it, because it is that escape, and it is, something that just brings a smile when you need one the most. And I have a question for you guys. Do you think the cuts would have been as bad as they have been if not for the XFL bankruptcy?
Great question. Great question. And again, we were talking about this too. And we're probably going to start our new show with this coming next week. But yeah, I don't think so. Because, he took a large cut. And it wasn't doing that badly this time. They were having success. They were getting pretty good TV ratings. But yeah, I know that there was a lot of money that he put into that. And so, yeah, I would absolutely think that has a large thing to do with it.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I'm sure it probably played a role in some of that.
And I feel so bad for Roman Reigns that he's getting the backlash from the fans that he's getting. I think people should be proud of him.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. He took a stand, and it's not something that a lot of people would do. It's a tough decision for some people too, because then you start to kind of think, well, I can't. A lot of times, if you go on furlough, the company may say, well, yeah, we're going to hold your spot, but there's no guarantee, and then there's no guarantee that you can go on unemployment. There's no guarantee that you're going to get your benefits paid for. So, it's a tough call. And there are rumors out there saying that there may be some of the wrestlers that are on furlough now, and they were given a choice of whether they were going to they could tell people or not. So there might be some that we won't see on TV for a while. And those are probably the people who just decided that, listen, I'm not taking the chance.
Right.
But yeah, it's a crazy time. It really is. Again, being as an older guy, I never would have thought I would have lived through anything like this, and it's so crazy to go through it where everybody's at home and but then there's some people who have to go out there. So yeah, it was rough. It was really a rough day to just hear that. And I know, did you listen to Daze that day?
Absolutely. Yeah.
It was tough. You could tell, you could hear it, in his voice, and you can hear the disappointment. Every time that he was talking about it, somebody else in the stream was popping up a new name. And yeah, it's really tough. And you're seeing other wrestlers tweeting things out. I know Bray Wyatt just tweeted out the word yuck. A lot of the other ones, Alexa Bliss saying she was crying when she saw Drake Maverick. So yeah, it was just a really, really rough time. And I think people are still kind of expecting more Let's,
Yeah.
you know, let's hope not. But you know, there were, before that all started, people were saying that they had to get rid of 40% of their workforce. So
Wow.
that's a lot.
And just
That's a
one
lot.
of the names that really caught me was Rowan, because
Yeah.
they could have done so much more with him.
Mhm.
And you know, he's a fellow redhead, so I've got some love there. But you know, I thought, you know, they can do so much more with him, and you know, hopefully he'll end up in AEW with his former tag team partner, and they'll just blow it up.
He would do well there, I think. And but you know what, I think people, though, I think too, are under a little bit of a misconception that, because that's what a lot of people are saying, was that, look, AEW will take him, but listen, they're not making money either.
No.
So the money isn't unlimited. I get it. I know they have billionaires that are owners, and Tony
Mm-hmm.
Khan and stuff, but yeah, look, they, you know, they might grab one or two of them, but
Mm-hmm.
until things get back to normal, I don't think that's going to happen. So, and like they, you know, people were talking, and Jeff mentioned this too, there's not an indie side now. Nobody's going out and wrestling in these small shows. So you can't even go out and think, well, I'm going to go with the indie circuit anymore. So yeah, man, it's tough, but I don't think that the other companies are a safety net right now. I mean, sure, some of them will probably get picked up, but you know, yeah, it's just it's just so sad, really. It really is.
Yeah, it really is.
Man, crazy. So I get, we've asked other people this in previous interviews and stuff like that. I mean, where do you think the future is with wrestling? Where do you see this going 5 years down the road? Do you see AEW? I know you said you watch AEW. Do you think they are still around from, you know, 5 years from now? Do you think they're prospering? Do you think they're always going to beat WWE on Wednesdays with NXT, or do you think they're going to switch? I mean, where do you see the business going?
I hope that AEW prospers, because I think competition just makes the product better.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want them to be like WWE. I want them to stay, you know, that kind of niche that they've crafted out for themselves. And, you know, they give their talent a lot more freedom than WWE. I think Vince, his role in WWE is gonna play a big part into 5 years down the road, if he's still around, because Vince isn't gonna give it up until he's, you know, just is gone at his desk. You know, so seeing who takes over, where they want to move the company, I think is gonna be really, really important.
I agree. Again, Jeff and I were just talking the other day. We were laughing because I'm a big Cowboys fan, always have been. And I compare Vince so much to Jerry Jones. It's almost like two of a kind. Like neither one of them they're all about the money. Neither one of them wants to really, you know, they don't want to give anything up. They don't want to step away. They don't want to give up any power with anything. And it drives me crazy. It really does. And I think it's time. I mean, look, Vince is tremendous for this business, always was. I mean, made such a difference in the business, and it wouldn't be what it is today without him. There is no question there. And I mean, I respect him for what he's done. However, I do kind of think, especially when it comes to writing and stuff, I don't know. I just think he's a little out of touch with things. I just don't think he knows today's fans. And I mean, you know, there's been people that have quoted him saying that, hey, listen, I know what the fans want. You know, it doesn't matter. They don't know what they want. I know what they want. And man, I just think he's just out of touch with some stuff.
Well, I think that's not more identifiable than when you look back at WrestleMania 30 and you see what happened with Daniel Bryan.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a great point. That's a great point.
And that was the fans saying, hey, Vince, we know what we want.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, I love that fans' voices can be heard. Maybe not every single fan, but collectively, I think it really can make a difference. And this is kind of a joke, but I used to say if I could have a 30-minute therapy session with anybody, it would be with Stephen King. Now I say I want a 30-minute therapy session with Vince McMahon.
Oh man, Stephen King. Ah, I love that guy. Me and Jeff, we talk about this all the time. We're both big horror fans.
Yeah.
Uh, so, and that's what led us to The Fiend. So, I mean, we're both horror nuts. When we got the chance to talk to Jason Baker, he worked for the great Tom Savini, and it was a fantastic interview. We love talking to him because Tom is an absolute genius with horror stuff. So, you like horror movies? I mean, you mentioned Stephen King, or you just want to get into his mind?
I'm a big psychological thriller person. The thing about Stephen King is I've heard him say this before in an interview. He'll start writing, and then it'll be a couple hours later, and he doesn't know what he's written, and he has to go back and read it, and he'll scare himself.
Wow.
Yeah, and I'm like, that's awesome. I tried to read The Stand right now, and I got audio running time on The Stand was like 64 hours or something like that.
That's a huge book. Huge book.
I got to hour 10 and I was like, okay, considering what's going on right now, I'm going to have to finish this one later.
Oh yeah, that's not a good book to read during right now.
Not right now.
No, in fact, I think a friend of mine posted something on Facebook and said, have any of you heard, I forget the character's name, the woman who was bringing the good people to her, I forget her name.
I don't remember.
I can't either. But anyway, he said, if any of you are going to sleep at night dreaming about this woman, we have a big problem right now. So I'm like, that's definitely not one to read. No, not right now.
The movie It is why I'm afraid of clowns and why I kind of got fascinated with people's phobias a little bit. I mean,
I can see that.
That's messed up. That's a messed up story. But The Shining, a classic book.
Oh,
you know, love the movie, the Jack Nicholson version.
Yeah.
But
Yep. I had just seen Dr. Sleep not that long ago, and I actually liked it. I didn't get a chance to read the book, but I was surprised at how much that followed the Kubrick movie, because it's no secret that Stephen King didn't like it. He didn't like the portrayal of Jack Torrance by Jack Nicholson in that movie. So, but it really followed that film, that original film storyline. So, but it was really good. If you haven't seen it, it's definitely a worthy sequel for the original.
I didn't realize there was a sequel. I will check it out.
You gotta listen to that book and I've heard obviously the book's probably way better because they usually are. But yeah, it's called Dr. Sleep. It just came out a little bit ago, and the book's been out for a while now. I think probably 4 or 5 years maybe. But yeah, it's basically when Danny had grown up. So yeah, I didn't know it was at first, and then I had heard about it, and then but yeah, you gotta check that out, especially if you're a fan of the original one.
Oh, that is so cool! I'm excited. Audiobooks other than wrestling are like, my huge form of entertainment because I don't really get into a lot of TV. So, oh man, I can't wait to go looking for that book now.
There you go. See, we help with everything, not just wrestling. We help with horror stuff too. I love audiobooks too. I'm a big fan. I used to listen to those when I'm going to work. If I had a long meeting I had to drive to, I love throwing those in because they're not just people reading them anymore. A lot of them are almost acted. Like where the person will, like, even if it's a man doing stuff, he'll change his voice if there's a female character, and he'll read it almost like acting out the things, and they'll use a lot of sounds and sound effects in them. So yeah, they've really come a long way. I love those.
JR actually narrated his latest book, and he did a fantastic. His impressions of Vince are hilarious. Now, nobody can do that better than probably Bruce Pritchard, but JR was, narrating his books. He did a fantastic job.
That's awesome.
It was absolutely fantastic. And I want to say this about wrestling books, because a lot of people don't realize if there's not enough demand for a book to be put on audio, it's not on audio. And so you have a population like me who's visually impaired, or, learning disabled population, and that's how they read. And there's so many wrestling books I would love to be able to read, and they're not on audio format. Like Bret Hart's book, I want to read it so bad. Shawn Michaels' first book. I listened to his second book, but I would love to read that first book. You know, there's so many books out there, just for the love of wrestling, that I would love to be able to listen to. And, you know, it's just, unfortunately, audio companies don't do what's maybe not the most popular.
Right. Now that makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense. Well, hopefully they should. It's definitely something they should look into, especially if it was on a bestseller list or something at some point,
Yes.
which a lot of those wrestlers' books were.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely, something they definitely should consider.
Yes.
So tell everybody what you do, Brandi, when you're not into wrestling. What do you do? I know we talked a little bit about it again before we recorded. So what do you do when you're not watching wrestling?
Well, I'm a mental health counselor by trade. I'm not working right now, you know, with everything that's going on. My 6-year-old little boy, Luke, I got to give him a shout out because he's a little wrestling fan in training.
Shout out to Luke, man.
He's my life. He loves Braun Strowman.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. That's cool.
So
that's awesome.
He started collecting wrestling figures, and he'll hand them to me and he'll say, "Mama, who's this?" And so I'll have to, you know, I'll touch it, you know, everywhere. And I'll go, "Oh, this is Bret Hart." And he's like, "How'd you do that?" You know, so, but his favorites right now are Braun Strowman, and his other favorite figure is Randy Orton. So,
oh, very cool.
He's got good taste.
Yeah, I was gonna say, he follows mom. That's awesome.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, you'll have to get us. We love to shout out people's collections and stuff like that on the show. So if he's got some collection stuff like that, send it along. We will definitely pass that out on the show because we absolutely love doing that. Well, that's awesome. That's awesome, man.
He loves the Braun Strowman with the car, and his Walmart edition of the championship title, you know, are probably his favorite wrestling related things.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Well,
I wish
good.
they still had wrestling buddies. Do you remember those?
Yes,
Yeah.
we do. Yes, we do. We were talking to one of the wrestlers. She's the current NWA champ. She actually had one of, I guess, someone that knew her or whatever called her up and said, "I can make you a wrestling buddy." And they actually made one
that's
for her.
awesome.
So yeah, it's amazing. Like the detail on it. I'm like, I didn't miss those things, man. They would make a fortune if they were out today.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely. They were so cool. I'm proud to say that I had a Hulk Hogan one, and my brother had an Ultimate Warrior one, and it was on all the time with the wrestling buddies.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So what would you say to somebody who is not in the Daze community to come over and to check it out, and obviously check us out as well, because it's always great hearing that from someone that has been in the community and what their take is on the community as well.
If you want a truly passionate experience, listen to a Daze stream. Plus, with Daze, I also love, you get a different cultural perspective. Because the Southern United States is definitely not the same as, London, England, and I love the passion that Daze has. I found out about you guys, obviously, from Daze, and I have to say, the thing that got me right away was one of the episodes, like Double J, and I was like, reminds me of Jeff Jarrett. And then, of course, you have a Southern boy on there, so
yes,
you can't go wrong. And Jody, I love how Jody describes things. I absolutely love her descriptions when you guys do Abby's Window and stuff like that, because there's so much of the Funhouse that I miss.
That's awesome.
And so the more detailed you guys are about that, the more I love it, because the very first one I heard was the very first Funhouse, and I was like, what just happened? I couldn't follow just by listening.
Yep.
And so to hear the descriptions and the conversation and the just the passion, it makes it for me.
That's awesome. Well, like I said, no bigger compliment for ourselves. I'm sure Daze is going to feel the same way, and Jody as well. She is very passionate about that, about Bray and about the topic and stuff like that. So, I can't say how much of a compliment it is to myself. Obviously, the Southern stylings of my co-host Jeff as well.
Go Jeff. Go Jeff.
Everybody said the sweet sounds of Jeff. I think were a couple people were saying. So there you go.
I love it. That's fantastic. That's fantastic.
It's the only time I've been complimented on my Southern accent.
There you go. There you go, man.
I lived in Washington, D.C. for a few months, and I got like multiple times a day, "You're not from around here, are you?" And I'm like, no.
Yeah. My wife and kids go down to visit South Carolina every now and then because she has her brother and sister-in-law live down there, and when they go down, it's kind of a reverse thing. It's like, you guys are from the north, aren't you? They're like, yep. Mm-hmm.
Well, pretty much what determines if you're from the north is if you like sweet or salty cornbread, and if you know what grits are.
Oh, yeah. Well, there you go. See, sweet cornbred, and I do not know what grits are. I've never had them in my entire life.
You're missing out, Joe. You're missing out.
You're totally
there you go.
We need to get him some shrimp and grits.
We do need to get you some shrimp and grits, man.
He needs some shrimp and grits and some fried green tomatoes.
Oh,
yes.
Now see, the only thing I've ever heard of that would be the movie.
The book's better, and
okay.
the food is better. So there you go.
Nice. See that?
We gotta get you on that, Joe, and some sweet tea.
Oh,
absolutely, man. What is wrong
some
with
real
you?
sweet tea?
I was just gonna say, now they have that up here, but I kind of doubt that it's anywhere near the kind that you guys have down there, because my daughter went down there and loves it, and then when she comes back up here and she drinks the kind they have up here, they're like, yeah, that's garbage. So, oh man,
dude,
oh man.
No, Jeff. Look, I believe South Carolina is where one of my favorite musicians started. The great Darius Rucker.
Yes.
Nice.
Yeah.
So,
Very cool.
I love you because of that too.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's great here. I grew up here, so I love South Carolina. I probably love it a little too much because the food was growing up, the food was very good, and having my grandmother and my mom cooking all that good soul food and all that, with the cornbread and the collard greens and black-eyed peas and all that good stuff. I'm making myself hungry right now. So
you just need to throw a peach cobbler in there and you got it.
That's it. Yeah. I had some peach cobbler last weekend, and I was very sad that I ate it as fast as I did. I was very upset with myself with just scarfing it down.
I love it. That's great. And what I feel so bad for Daze is one night in one of the streams, he was talking about the fast food or restaurants they have over there that we may not have here. And I was like, Daze, you need Chick-fil-A.
Oh yeah.
Now I have that up here. So
praise Jesus.
I love Chick-fil-A. Yes. Yeah. Yes. In
Who,
fact, I took my family and loaded them into the car. And we drove to the one that's about half an hour away from us, and we got takeout the one day because my daughter was craving Chick-fil-A. So, yes, love Chick-fil-A.
You got major daddy points then.
I did, yes.
Yeah.
I did. Although it's really difficult to put the family in a car and then eat in the car, because then you're sitting there with like hand sanitizer and wipes, and you're wiping yourself off after everything else. So it's kind of a pain to do, but it was worth it. It was worth it.
Look, dude, I don't want to hear it. Imagine being blind trying to eat in the car. Okay.
Oh, I can imagine.
You got nothing. You got nothing on me. Okay.
You are correct. You are correct. Not going to argue that point at all.
I I joke around a lot, and I'm like, if you want an experience, just wear a blindfold for 5 minutes and see what happens.
Oh man, unbelievable. Well, listen, Brandi, we really appreciate you joining us, and thanks so much for reaching out to us.
Yes, I appreciate you guys.
Oh, we love it. We can't, again, like I said, it's such a huge compliment coming from you and letting us know that you listen to the show, and I'm sure it's going to be for days as well. And we had a blast just talking wrestling with you tonight. And listen, thanks so much for being a part of the Daze community and being a part and listening to our show. And man, we certainly will see you in the community, and we will. I'm sure we will talk to you again at some point down the road.
Hey, I'm here. But look, I have a show request, okay?
Sure.
Since we all seem to have a love for horror and wrestling, I want you guys to do a show about the darker characters in the history of wrestling.
Wow. There you go.
I would like that idea.
That's a very good idea. I love it. Very good idea. Yeah, I love it. I absolutely love it. That's definitely something we can talk about for sure.
Yeah.
That would be absolutely cool.
And since I know you enjoy horror a little bit, I'm gonna do a shameless plug. I also have a horror movie podcast that I do with a friend of mine, and if you go on our YouTube channel, it's on there, but it's called Movies to Be Murdered By, and it's all about horror movies.
Cool. Have you talked about Hitchcock on there?
Not yet. It's coming up though.
Okay. All right.
Awesome.
It's coming
I'm
up.
excited. I'm excited. And maybe throw in some Silence of the Lambs for me too. So.
Yes.
There you go.
And that next week's episode, we're talking about Rosemary's Baby.
Oh man, I couldn't finish it. I was like, this is too much.
It's a lot.
I couldn't finish The Exorcist either.
Oh, don't get me started on The Exorcist. I've told many people that that movie ruined me when I was like,
Scarred Joe for life.
Yeah, first of all, my mom, like, I don't know. My mom got into horror stuff. My mom read these books that literally when I was a 7-year-old, when I'd see the cover of the book, I was scared because I don't know how she could read all this stuff. Like, I'm like, I remember watching that, and I had to probably be 8 or 9. And I'm like, oh, like that movie just wrecked me. And to this day, I can watch all the gore, the slasher films, all that kind of stuff, but demonic possession stuff, nope. I draw the line. I'm like, nope, can't do it. And
I can't do it either.
I literally think that it wrecked me, and I just can't do that stuff anymore. So, yep.
I love hearing some of the stories behind some of that stuff, like the truth behind Amityville, or some of the truth stuff behind the Exorcist story. I love some of that stuff. Yeah,
I agree. A lot of that used to be. A lot of that used to be public knowledge. They used to put that on TV a lot. They have shows and stuff back in the day that were. I remember a show called PM Magazine when I was a kid, and it was all about like news stuff. But it was kind of it wasn't necessarily like a news show like 60 Minutes. And I remember after Amityville, and that became popular, they had a TV crew go to that house because that house is still there. They had a crew go in there, and they went into the house, and here the house was painted pink. So it was kind of very non-threatening. And then they went down the basement. I remember them filming down there. And they were like, everything was bricked over and sealed off and all that kind of stuff. So, but it's funny how they did used to do things like that. But again, not really much anymore because it's so different now. The movies are so different, but yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. Now you got Jeff's podcast to listen to as well. So that's awesome.
I'm excited.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm supposed to be on an episode. We're going to talk Friday the 13th because I'm a big Friday the 13th fan.
Never seen it.
Oh, so good. So good. Well, I shouldn't say that. I'm very biased because a lot of it's bad. There are so many of them, and probably like the last 5 or 6 were just awful. But the first one, the second one, probably 1 through 4.
Yeah,
are actually really good films. And I mean, I'm a big fan of all the slasher stuff. So yeah, but well, listen again.
Probably,
go ahead.
No, I was just going to say probably my favorite in the last 20 years or so was probably The Exorcism of Emily Rose.
Oh, now see, nope. I can't.
Yep.
Nope, can't watch it. Nope.
That was good.
Nope,
It was really good.
It was really good.
Nope, heard about that one. I'm like, yeah, no.
It was good. Based on a true story again. So
Yep. Man.
So we know Joe won't be watching that one.
No, that's not going to happen. Oh. Well, listen, Brandi.
Thank you for your time.
Oh, no problem. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
We absolutely love the conversation. Thank you so much for coming on. And again, we will see you in the chat there. And if not, again,
Yes.
we'd love to have you on again someday.
Anytime. And Jeff, get Joe some sweet tea, for heaven's sake.
Yes, I will work on that. Sweet tea and
right,
shrimp
good
and
job.
grits.
Good job.
Thank you so much.
Good night, guys.
Take care.